What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sideline Thoughts. I'm Gio Galvez, and today we're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs round two. I know the last time we talked about round one, we were talking about halfway. Might get touched to ending and kind of what happened there, but right now we're already halfway through round two. We're gonna focus on that for now and see how I get going. So, NBA playoffs round two. We're just on the West Conference side. I'm kind of where I'm at right now, so I just prefer to start on that side. Starting off on yesterday's game, the Oklahoma City Thunder were playing Game Four in Dallas against the Dallas Mavericks, and what Dallas looked to grow their lead in the series to take a 3-1 lead ended up being a 2-2 lead because the Thunders took advantage of the bad shooting slump of the Mavs in the second half of the game. And they just took advantage of it, cut the lead throughout the third quarter. And the fourth quarter came around and took about a minute or two in the fourth quarter where OKC cut it close enough, and then they took the lead again. I think it was 84-84 where they tied it, and they took a lead at 86-84. Um, It was a very good game. I honestly, personally, I thought Mavericks were just gonna really run away with it after that first half performance and having that big lead. I thought at least by the third quarter they were growing in so much more, and then by the fourth it would have just been an over game. But a bad shooting slump in that third quarter, especially by Luca. I think it should have been a lot better. He Luka had 12 points going into halftime. Coming back, I believe he only had 6 points in the third quarter, but I believe two of them were from free throws, if I'm not mistaken. So it was kind of like I said, a bad shooting time in the second half. Kyrie as well started off very slow in the second half. But PJ Washington has been keeping them alive, and he's been doing that since the series against the Clippers. He kept them alive. He kept on shooting so many corner threes. He kept playing very well, and he's carrying it now against Oklahoma City Thunder, which the Mavericks really need. They've been looking for him, and it's cool to see that. I mean, sorry, it's not cool to see. It's good to see that knowing that he has the hot hand, and they're looking for him in the corner, and he's knocked down some big time threes to either grow the lead or even get the lead back. Even in the two games that Oklahoma City won, well, even in the first game that Oklahoma City won, now this is the second one. PJ Washington, they've seen the hot hand that he's been given. They've been taking advantage of it when Luca or Kyrie isn't being able to score as much, but they're also looking to facilitate and get the ball moving around because you have Lively, who's also been dominating around the paint. Gafford started off yesterday's game very, very strong. I think he scored with 2, 3 buckets in the first minute or two. Obviously not minute, but 2, 3 minutes of the game. Give you Mavericks their first few points. So they're getting their tall players very involved, and I think that's going to be the advantage for the Mavericks if they want to win the series. Is you need to take advantage of the height because although OKC have Chet and he's actually tied for the um, tallest player on the court with Lively. They're both 7'1", but that's what they're winning on their height. Chet's a much more skilled player. Obviously, Chet could shoot the three, Chet could shoot a mid range. He could do all of that. So I think for the Mavericks, in order to win the series, they have to be a more dominant in the paint, use the height because they have more players with more height. I mean, you have Gafford, who's I believe 6'10", Lively, like I said, is 7'1". PJ Washington is 6'7". You also have uh Jones Jr., who's I believe he's 6'8", 6'9". So you had this height, so you have to use it. I think the Mavericks have to be able to utilize and take advantage of this. But again, it's been working using PJ Washington in the corner, but also continue letting Luca get his shots, Kyrie do his thing. Kyrie even against the Clippers in that series, he allowed Luca to do Luca's thing in the first half, and Kyrie slowly started going on in the second half, or sometimes even the second quarter, but mainly in the second half. So it's been working up and down. Again, both series they tied 2-2 at the end of game four. And much like stats have said, whoever wins game five, it's of a 2-2 tied series, ends up winning the series, whether it goes to 6 or 7. But OKC on their side, I think they did a very good job, especially yesterday's game, and just continued to stay on it. Yeah, they were down, I believe, by 14 in the first 6 minutes of the game. but because they were stuck at 8 points for a while Mavericks had about 22. I believe at one point the score was 22-8. They stuck to it. OKC started hitting the shot, cut the lead to 10, cut it to 8, cut it to 4. But then Mavericks won again, grew the lead, and it was back and forth into the third quarter. OKC kept on it. Shea, even though he only had, I believe, 10 points going into a halftime, he turned it up in the second half. He started getting his shots. He started getting his mid ranges, especially on the sides by the baseline. He started getting these shots in the fourth quarter. That was um clutch time shots right there, where it even gave him a lead at one point because Mavericks were coming back on it. So yes, Shea's your best player, and we know it, and you know Shea's the best player on OKC, and he was able to go off and get that going. But you know, using Chet, but establishing himself around the rim, whether it's offensive, defensively in the paint, and like I said, he could shoot the mid range, he could shoot three, and Chet hit clutch threes in the game yesterday. And looking at these other players as well, I mean, you have Lou Dort having to play defense on Luka, and in my opinion, a lot of times he's been fouling him, but he does also keep the pressure on Luka, plays hard on them. So it's the best defender on Luka, which is fine. OKC's been doing that very well. And then you also have Wiggins, who's been playing quite a bit. You also have the two Williams playing, who have been playing a big role into all of this, and they've been getting their shots. So OKC, as I think a lot of people have seen this, they they work together. They're the team ball. They're really the team ball, unlike other teams that focus on their star players only. This one, yes, they do rely on Shea and Chet to do their part a lot, but they could trust in both Williams to go off and get points and when it's needed. They could trust in Lou Dort to shoot or need to get a couple buckets if needed to. So it's great to see how that team was playing against this Mavericks team where it was like, how is it gonna work? And the Mavericks, when getting Kyrie last season, I believe 2 seasons ago, last season, they thought, oh, it wasn't gonna be good. Kyrie's ball dominant, Luka's ball dominant, and all this, and then they made it work. They got some height, they got some role players to fit around. PJ Washington's a great pickup coming from Charlotte, so I think it's a great series. I think it's really gonna end on six though. Um, well, obviously it's either 6 or 7. I just don't think it's gonna go to 7. I think it goes to 6. This series has been really good, honestly. I think OKC in that first game they looked so much dominant, but so much more dominant, showing like they're the best, they're the number one team in the West. Mavericks didn't look as strong, like they were trying to get adjusted to OKC, even though playing them throughout the season. But it's like they're trying to see, what's going on, how, what we need to work on, what we need to adjust, and they're going throughout that game with it. But game two and game three, they just came out blazing, just shooting amazing and great, just playing all together, and the energy that they bring together. Game four, which I believe should have been Mavericks, is to take the lead 3-1. They messed up that on their own. They lost that on their own. But going back to game one on OKC, yeah, I mean, you're gonna argue like they got so many free throws in the first half. They all that. Yes, that is that is a topic to bring up. That is an argument to bring up because it doesn't look good. One, on the referees, but also the players that are giving all these free throws. It it looks very unfair that the game's being called. Very unfair. Like Shea's getting what I believe 12 free throws in the first half. Like, imagine that's just the first half. Normally you probably get that in a game. If you get that in a game, it's like, okay, well, 12 free throws a game. He got fouled this many times. Probably it was at the end when they're trying to cut the lead and this or that. But 12 in the first half doesn't look good on the referees. Definitely makes you know Shea look like he's getting all these calls for just driving in and things like that. So it really, in my opinion, the game has in this series has changed. The refereeing has changed in that aspect from that game one. The series has been so much better. Now moving on to the other Western Conference semifinal, the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Denver Nuggets, a series that I think really should have been the Western Conference final if one of them could have held the first seed, the other one stay in the second and the third. We would have seen the two giants in the West, in my opinion, go off in the Western Conference Finals, but instead we're getting them in the semifinals. These 4 games in the series, which Game 5 is today, have been crazy. Game 1, Minnesota wins it by 7. Good game, kind of iffy for Denver as they didn't reach 100, but their shooting was not as great. And in game two, Minnesota comes out dominating a terrible shooting night for the Denver Nuggets, which we haven't seen in a while. Um, yeah, we haven't even seen since last season in the playoffs. And so it was a very bad shooting night. The Minnesota Timberwolves get the 26-point win. But to stay in the series, Denver flies to the Target Center in Minnesota, gets a 27-point win, keeping themselves in the series. And in game four, just getting the job done, getting an 8-point win and tying up the series, forcing the game six. The series is a great series, amazing. I mean, you're looking at the matchups, you're looking at the players, you're looking at Jokic. He's also someone. I mean, the entire Denver Nuggets team had a bad shooting night game two, Jokic included, missing normal hook shots that he'll make, missing normal layups that he'd make, maybe a couple free throws he also missed. It wasn't a great night for him, but he picks it back up going to he gets. I mean, he led the entire game, both teams, in rebounds in game three, and game two, while Rudy Gobert led both in game one and game four, in which I believe it was game two he was out because he had his first child. So, understandably he wasn't there. And who would have known if that win, being 26 points, would have been even more if Rudy Gobert was there to either clean up the boards or get a couple layups or dunks in. So that could have been something different. But if you're really looking at it, I mean, you have Jokic playing on top, and for the Timberwolves, in order to win the series, is you just have to bombard it with the height. You have to win on the boards. You have to win on shooting the mid ranges, shooting getting the layups, getting the paint, dominate. Because yes, they have Jokic, right? But we see Jokic isn't the greatest defender there, nor is he the most swift, quickest. I mean, being able to just move around and block great. Like, no, he's averaging about one block per game this series, which isn't bad. But for the tallest player on your team, you definitely should be averaging more than that. You have Jokic, of course, he's gonna be Rudy Gobert when Rudy Gobert's playing. And Karl-Anthony Towns, of course, you have Aaron Gordon is in the height of them, but does have the body to match up with them and being able to defend them outside just the paint and the mid range and the threes if he has to. Aaron Gordon is athletic enough to keep up with this, so I think it's a good matchup. I mean, we're going to see Jaden McDaniel, of course, not for the offense for Minnesota, but mainly for defense to lock up Jamal Murray because the best guard you're going to have to keep on, and McDaniel is your best defender. You have Edwards also. You're keeping up with Michael Porter Jr. or Christian Braun coming off the bench, or KCP just being on there as the starting point guard or shooting guard as well. And then either Conley if he's starting, or Naz Reid again either on KCP or Michael Porter Jr. Whichever the one's there. The series is pretty. It looks so evenly matched. It looks so good. So like I said, for Minnesota, you have to, I think, just put pressure on the height and win in the paint. I really think that's how you're gonna win the series, is beating them there. But you're gonna have to have great perimeter defense, keeping Jamal Murray out, make sure he doesn't get those shots or even allow the pick and rolls. You have to be ready to get those rebounds and crash the boards. Because defensively, the Nuggets, they're gonna have Michael Porter Jr., they're gonna have Aaron Gordon, they're gonna even have a Christian Braun. He even goes crashing the boards, whether it's on offense or defense. And that's the only way that knowing that they're not going to beat you in the height, that's the way of knowing that they're going to get second chance options or just stop you from getting a second chance opportunity and attacking the ball on the other side. Now for the Nuggets, what they're really going to have to do is just continue with the Jokic pick and roll. He has the vision. He's going to see when Mike Porter Jr. is open somewhere in the corner, or Aaron Gordon, sorry. Aaron Gordon is cutting in, getting either a layup if he wants mid range if he takes a shot, or Jamal Murray with the three or driving it in. So the way I see it is that the Nuggets already know each other so well. And yes, game two is just a poor shooting night. Game one, they just couldn't work it out together. But they really figured it out now. Now it's really on the Timberwolves to, hey, series is tied. We need to get one. And these guys still had to establish something, whether it's dominating the paint, whether it's Anthony Edwards being unstoppable around the arc, which essentially he has been all playoffs. He's been unstoppable. One of the best in just the playoffs from both the East and the West in scoring. Anthony Edwards has been dominant. it's almost like he knows he's the best player on the court, or he knows he's one of the best players on the court because obviously you have Jokic there. So for the Timberwolves, it's either you cater to that a lot and you just try to get these stops on the paint and just and try to get Denver to force to shoot around the arc a lot, and hopefully they're missing. Or you, and then on your side is either you carry to that, like I'm saying, or you start setting up the mid range and paint dominance and trying to win it on there. But yeah, I mean, either one. Again, it's series tied. Winner game five ends up winning the series. So see how this goes. I thought Nuggets, and I still think Nuggets will win it, but Timberwolves win. I mean, they'll win it all. I think the winner of the series just ends up winning the entire playoffs, the entire championship, because I don't think there's a team in the East that can match up with either one of these teams, whether it's the skills of the Denver Nuggets or the talent and the height of the Minnesota Timberwolves. No team in the East. So for the East Coast, we're going to start off with the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks, a series that's also tied 2-2. Both teams won their home court games, with the Knicks winning game 1 and 2, and the Pacers winning game 3 and 4. The score itself kind of shows how close the games are, but I think they're much more closer than what even the scores show. The Knicks won game one by 4 points, and then game two by 9 points, while the Pacers won game three by 5 points, and then they dominate, destroyed. It's like the Knicks weren't even playing on game four, winning by 32 points. Now, that game was just far off, but the first three games, the series had been very close. I mean, for the Knicks, around the paint, in the perimeter, I mean, around in the paint, around the rim, their protection of it or even the dominance of establishing that dominance hasn't been as good as it's been throughout the regular season or in the playoffs. Obviously, your starting center right now because of Randall being out is Hardenstein and Robinson, and then to get these rebounds, and we've seen throughout the game that you got OG Anunoby, Josh Hart always crashing the boards and trying to get these rebounds. Your lead scorers is Brunson, of course, with 43, and DiVincenzo being your second best scorer. While in game three, even though you guys lost, he was your best scorer with 35 points. He tied with Halliburton for 35 points in that game as the leading scorers. But Halliburton also playing very dominant just himself. He led game two, even though they lost. He led the entire game as the leading scorer with 34 points. And like I'm saying, crashing the boards, Josh Hart leads literally the first three games in rebounds total with 13, 15, and 18, getting more each entire game, except for game four, where Naismith led it with 12 rebounds. But looking at this, honestly, I think the Pacers should win in four. I think once they found themselves and found how to make the changes and adjustments against the Knicks, they've been one shooting outside the arc a lot more. They've been taking a lot of mid ranges, but other than that, they're allowing now, especially game 3 and 4, they allowed Siakam and Miles Turner to do their thing either on the free throw line, that shooting free throws, but when they have the ball, they shoot mid range on the free throw line or at in the paint. They've been much more dominant in it. I think that's how the Pacers really found how they're gonna win the series, and I really think that's how they're gonna do it. Yeah, they trust in Halliburton, and he's gonna score his points. He's gonna get his buckets, but it's getting everyone else involved, right? They allowed game two, I believe it was game two, where they lost. Miles Turner only had 6 points. In a game where he's your second best player, you need him to have more. You need him to have way more. So they need to get him going, Siakam going, so you dominate the paint with two best, power forward center duo right there. And then, but it's not just that; it's the role players of the Pacers as well have been very great. I mean, Obi Toppin has been doing really well for them. You got McConnell, Andrew Nembhard, and Aaron Nesmith also playing their roles very well, getting big time shots, hitting big time threes, especially with Nembhard hitting big time threes. I believe it was in game three where he was just, I think he caught on fire for a little bit in the third quarter. So again, these real players doing their part and allowing the star players to kind of not just rest and not having to be so ball dominant, not having to do every single play of the game. So I think the Pacers have found that the role players could also help. They could trust in it, and then how they're gonna get around the Knicks again, dominating the paint in the beginning with Turner and Siakam, closes in, allows the three to open up, and then you have your role players, or even Halliburton shooting it lights out and playing very well. On the Knicks side, I don't think they're going to be able to dominate the paint, so they definitely have to get their mid range and threes on point. I mean, Brunson, like you said, has been dominating. He's been balling out crazy. DiVincenzo's been doing so great. I think he only had one bag at, I believe it was game one, where he had a tough shooting night. But he's been, or game three actually. But DiVincenzo, I mean, throughout much of the playoffs, especially at the end of the regular season, taking a much higher role, being the second best scorer on the team. He's been doing very good, and it's just they need him all the time. Him and Brunson, they just need both of them to be hitting 20 to 30 points a game. It's a sad truth for the Knicks. If they want to win it, they need them both to just be in the 20s to 30s. You need Josh Hart to be working his butt off, getting those rebounds, getting assists, getting whatever buckets he could get. And then OG Anunoby, the same thing as Josh Hart, just crashing the boards, getting those rebounds, and getting any buckets he can, because realistically, they're not going to win in the paint. They're really not against the Patriots. So whatever paint points you get, you have to get them off either um, fast breaks. You have to get them in just mismatches, or whatever you could get them on. But the Knicks, they're gonna have to look more to shooting the mid range and outside the arc. And they have to be very, very on top of it, catch fire very quick if they really want to win the series. So to close series, I think Pacers are gonna win in Game 6 on this one. But the Knicks, I mean, in Game 1, even winning the series against the 76ers, they looked very good. But now that the Pacers have made adjustments and found what they're doing better, they have that advantage over the Knicks of the Pacers should look so much stronger. And the last series of the Eastern Conference is the Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Boston Celtics, in which the Celtics have a 3-1 lead. I mean, like most people thought, Boston Celtics were going to go to the NBA finals. They're going to be the dominant team in the East, as they've looked all season pretty much. This series, they haven't looked all dominant. I mean, the Cleveland Cavaliers got a surprising game 2 win, in which it was more just the Boston Celtics playing very bad. They didn't play great at all, even though the Celtics star players Tatum and Brown did their job. Tatum had 29 points, Brown had 24, I believe. So they did a part. It was everyone else that they needed, um, play to the normal, to their highest level, and did not. But other than that, Celtics, I mean, they have a 25-point win in Game 1. They have a 13-point win in Game 3, and only a 7-point win in Game 4. So we see how Game 5 turns out, and how they change it up, and again establish the dominance in going. Right now, Porzingis has been out, and the Celtics have looked to Cornette and Hauser, kind of taking those minutes, taking the roles, you know, going into the paint, either whether it's rebounding, getting the boards, or assisting out, or getting second chance opportunity, or finishing just in the paint. So they've been adjusting to that, along with Al Horford being, the 37-year-old big man there. But we see them outside the arc sometimes shooting a three, or pick and roll games. So we see that going with them. But in that loss that the Celtics had, you had both Drew Holiday and Derek White not playing great. Derek White only 10 points, Drew Holiday only 4, not facilitating as well. They needed them to do so much more, and it didn't happen. Now we've seen, I believe in Game 1, Derek White had 25 points. In Game 4, yeah, he didn't play great. He only had 5 points, but Drew Holiday covered it, getting 18 points. Game 3, I think they both had about 15, 18 points. So you need either one of them to hit the double digits and almost to the 20 points, and the other one to give you some points, or to just look more dominant. You need both of them to almost hit the 20. Derek White, we've seen it throughout the regular season. He does that. But really, the Celtics don't need to worry as much. I mean, we see how dominant they have been. We know how they play. We know how, like we say, how dominant they've been. They're going to continue winning. I think they're going to win it right now in Game 5. I think they're going to win the series, close it out, move on to see if they play Indiana or New York. As for the Cavaliers, I mean, you lose Game 4, you didn't have Donovan Mitchell, but even with him dominating, like in Game 1, he had 33 points, even with the loss. Game 2, he had 29 points. You guys won, but like I said, it was the Celtics' mistakes. And then Game 3 kind of ties for 33 points as the leading scorer. So even with your best team with Garland and Mitchell and Evan Mobley, and then you're having your Struz, we're seeing Struz take a lot more shots than I think he really should be taking, in my opinion, even though he's only gaining of 15 points a game, give or take. And then you now, even with game three and game four, you were playing Caris LeVert a lot more and not knowing exactly if he's going to go off or not, and seeing how that's going around. I think Jared Allen should have been getting more points so the Celtics could dominate and establish the dominance in the paint on offense and defense. And I mean both of them at the same time, and that's not really going on. I think that's how the Cavaliers would win Game Five and try to keep themselves in the series, is getting winning the paint, because they have the players to do it. So that's what I think they really need to do. Are they going to do? I don't know. I don't think they will, but that's just a way that I think they could establish themselves. But they also need the defense outside the perimeter, because if you give the Celtics the open shots, they're going to do it, and they're going to run you around. They're going to take those mid ranges that you give them. Al Horford's going to take those threes. Pritchard's going to take a couple threes, or even mid rangers if you leave them open enough. So it's very hard with the Celtics team, because they could shoot and score, or they could break you down and get into the paint. It's just so hard. But I think as long as you secure the paint, you could allow to find a way to work with your wingers outside the arc and play some defense on there. But even with your best player, even with him in the game or even him out, the Cavaliers struggle to even get a win in which the Celtics were playing their best at. So if you're struggling to get a win with the Celtics not even fluking themselves, you're not going to win anything else. But yeah, guys, I mean, this the playoffs. It's so much better than I really thought. Aside from the Celtics and Cavaliers series, which we kind of, I mean, I would think people would really think Celtics would dominate a lot more on it. Sorry, you can feel I was getting a little sick, but all the other series I tied 2-2. I think the Mavs really should have tried taking that 3-1 lead. They really had it on that one. But the best series, I think the most even in the East, is the Knicks and the Pacers, as we're seeing. And the best series that we're ever going to get in this playoffs is going to be the Timberwolves and the Nuggets, which I think the winner of that just comes out winning the entire thing. But, guys, we get episode out by the end of the second round, beginning of the conference finals for both sides. We'll see who are playing. But yeah, it's been, in my opinion, it's been a very entertaining but interesting playoffs. I think it really has. And like I said, just to think, if the Timberwolves and Nuggets held that one, and we'd see like a Nuggets Mavs, OKC Timberwolves in the semis, it would have been better. But it is what it is, So yeah, so thanks again, guys, for watching. This is Silent Thoughts. I'm Joe Galvez. See you guys next time.